What happens when one of the most iconic voices in music history sits across from one of late-night TV's most unpredictable hosts? And what if that conversation spirals in a direction no one expected, leaving the studio audience stunned and viewers at home unable to look away? That's exactly what happened during one unforgettable night, a moment that had people debating online for weeks. Tonight, we're breaking down that fiery exchange. Before we jump into the story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments, because once you hear this, you're going to have plenty to say. From the moment the cameras started rolling, the energy in the Watch What Happens live studio was different. It wasn't just another lighthearted episode. Something about the air that evening carried weight. Chaka Khan, the 10-time Grammy-winning queen of funk, walked onto the set with her trademark confidence. She didn't need to say anything. Her aura alone commanded attention. Andy Cohen, well known for asking questions that push boundaries, had that familiar spark in his eyes, the one fans recognize as the sign he's about to stir something up. Chaka Khan, the legend herself, Andy said as she took her seat, elegant and poised. "Thank you for inviting me," Chaka replied warmly, her voice carrying the depth that had made her famous. "Although I've been warned about what you do on this show," Andy raised an eyebrow, a grin forming. "All good things, I hope." Chaka adjusted herself in her chair. "Let's just say I heard you ask the questions other people wouldn't dare," Andy chuckled, admitting easily. "Guilty as charged." But that's what keeps it interesting, right? Speaking of which, I have to ask about something that's been buzzing everywhere. Your comments about today's music industry. Chaka's smile shifted, becoming more deliberate. "Which comments exactly?" "I've had a lot to say lately. The ones where you said young artists don't feel authentic," Andy clarified, leaning in. "You said, and I'm quoting, that too many of today's musicians care more about social media than about true musical ability." The audience went quiet, sensing the tension in the room. Chaka's eyes narrowed slightly, but her tone remained steady. "Yes, I said that, and I stand by it. Music used to be about soul, about a real connection. These days, it often feels manufactured, built to trend online instead of touch lives. But don't you think that's a bit unfair?" Andy asked, his voice taking on that familiar pushy tone. "Look at Beyoncé, Rihanna, Taylor Swift. They're thriving in this era." "Are you saying they aren't genuine?" Chaka tapped the chair lightly with her fingers. "Those women worked hard. They've earned their place. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the newcomers who act like fame is guaranteed. They think a hook and some attention online is enough to last." Andy tilted his head, his smile daring. "But isn't it contradictory? You've collaborated with people like Kanye West. You've praised artists like Drake. Doesn't that go against what you're saying?" Chaka's jaw tightened, though her voice stayed calm. "Recognizing real talent isn't the same as endorsing everything about today's industry. Kanye, Drake. They honor the history. They respect the craft. That's different." Andy gave a small nod, but he wasn't done. "Let's look at your own history, then. You've had challenges, addiction, financial trouble, fights with record labels. How do you criticize today's artists when your own path had so many struggles?" The crowd seemed to hold its breath. Chaka's eyes flashed, and her usual composure showed cracks. "Excuse me?" she said sharply. "I'm just saying," Andy continued, ignoring or perhaps enjoying the rising tension. "Today's artists have more control. They can protect themselves from the predators that took advantage of so many in your generation." Chaka leaned back, locking eyes with him. "You want to talk predators? Let's talk about executives who robbed artists of their rights, who drove them into exhaustion, who fed addictions instead of offering help. Do you think these Instagram-famous stars even understand that?" "I think they learned from artists like you," Andy pressed, his tone poking at her. "They saw what happened to legends and figured out how not to repeat it." "Artists like me?" Chaka repeated, her voice suddenly low and sharp. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Andy paused briefly but pushed forward. "I mean artists who had to face personal battles, who had to rebuild after setbacks." "Setbacks? Mistakes, you mean?" Chaka's grip tightened on the chair. "I'm not judging," Andy insisted quickly, though his voice suggested otherwise. "I'm saying maybe younger artists have studied past careers and adapted. Adapted because of their predecessors," Chaka cut in. Her tone carried weight now. You mean the same pioneers who carved the very path they're walking? The ones who demanded respect, who pushed for freedom, who made sure this industry could even exist for them? That's not what Andy started. No, Andy, Chaka interrupted, her voice rising. Let's be real about what you're implying. You're suggesting my generation wasn't smart enough, wasn't tough enough, that somehow it was our fault. Let me tell you, you are dead wrong. The tension was electric. Chaka's voice grew stronger, echoing through the studio. You think intelligence is having followers online? No. Real intelligence is surviving in an industry designed to silence women, especially black women, long before hashtags made it popular to care. Real intelligence is saying no to being turned into a product. Real intelligence is rebuilding when the industry spits you out, not because you failed, but because you refuse to compromise who you are. Andy tried to steer things back. But don't you agree today's artists have advantages? They can control their own stories, build direct fan relationships. Chaka laughed, but there was no humor in it. Control their own stories? Do you know what that really means? It means speaking your truth even when it makes people uncomfortable. It means refusing to let powerful people cut down your accomplishments. It means not letting anyone, yes, even you, reduce your legacy to clickbait. Andy's confidence slipped. Still, he tried again. I respect you deeply, Chaka. But don't you think some of your criticisms come from a generational disconnect? The words landed like fire. A generational disconnect? She repeated, her voice dangerously calm. Are you saying I'm out of touch? I'm saying it's natural, Andy explained, though it came off patronizing. Every generation thinks the next one isn't as good. That's just how it goes. Chaka leaned forward, her tone sharp as a blade. You know what's natural? Respect. Respect for those who came first. Respect for the foundation they laid so this new wave even has ground to stand on. Andy's smile faltered. Chaka pressed harder. You think autotune is progress? You think fake numbers and viral tricks are evolution? My era gave the world funk. My era gave soul music that still makes people feel. My era gave performers who didn't need autocorrection, who wrote their songs, who played instruments, who moved crowds with pure skill. That's artistry. The studio audience was riveted, barely breathing. Andy tried again, his tone less confident now. You can't dismiss everyone from today, though. That's like saying electric guitars made music invalid. Chaka stared at him, her voice deliberate and cutting. The difference between an acoustic and electric guitar is skill either way. What I'm talking about is the difference between artistry and artifice. Andy, looking rattled, blurted out, That sounds elitist. The word hit hard. Elitist? Chaka asked, her voice like ice. You call me elitist for expecting artists to have talent? Andy flushed but kept going. I'm saying dismissing a whole generation can come across that way. Chaka rose to her feet slowly, her presence towering, her voice echoing through the room. You want to know what elitist is? Elitist is inviting a legend to your show and trying to drag her down. Elitist is believing you know more than someone who's been living this business her entire life. Elitist is putting your sound bites above decades of lived artistry. Andy stayed seated, visibly shaken, as Chaka continued. You know what's really sad? I came here ready to celebrate music. To talk about new projects, collaborations, young artists I respect. But you revealed how you actually see me, not as a treasure but as a relic to challenge. Turning to the audience, her voice softened slightly but carried no less power. For my whole career, I've fought for respect, fought against critics, labels, gatekeepers who tried to silence me. And I will not sit here and let anyone, not even Andy Cohen, shrink my legacy. Andy made one last attempt. Chaka, please, let's start over. Let's talk about your music. But she shook her head firmly. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. You've shown me tonight. Looking into the main camera, she delivered her final message to viewers at home. To everyone watching, never let anyone reduce your art. Never let anyone convince you your standards are too high. Real artistry cannot be erased. It will always matter. With her head held high, Chaka Khan turned and walked off the set, leaving Andy Cohen sitting stunned, stripped of his usual smug confidence. The studio audience sat frozen, fully aware they had just witnessed television history. So what about you? How do you feel about this unforgettable confrontation between two giants in entertainment? Who do you think came out stronger? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from the world of entertainment.